Sometimes it's hard to see the miracle when things are wobbly in our field. Nathan is singing to us from Canada this morning, and that's pretty much a miracle. And what I loved that was happening here was as things were going in and out, which truly is out of our control, we all just kind of kept going with it. And then you'd hear a little disappointment. Oh, but then it would come back. Oh, come back. So strangely, of course, because the universe is always doing this, leads right into what we're talking about this morning. So one of the greatest moments of joy, okay, it's Mother's Day, so I hope you'll forgive me if some tears flow as I talk to you. So in one of the most generous moments of joy in the birth of my son, there was also one of those moments. And I had an angelic visitation, I would call it. So an angelic visitation. So immediately when I heard myself say those words, what I heard was the skies open up and there's just this moment of light and glory and beauty. But what I mean is completely different from that. Right after my son was born, as he was put onto my body, the doctor turned this direction. My former husband turned this direction. And I looked up and the door opened and a man in scrubs walked into the room and he walked right between my legs, which were still up in the air, interesting thing, and put his hands onto my son's back, ran his finger up his foot, up his spine. The baby went like this. My son went like that. I am looking at him like this. He looks me right in the eye and he says, he wasn't breathing when the door opened. His feet were purple. I just had to make sure he was okay. And I was totally zoned in on him. We had this moment together and he turned around and walked out in beautiful green scrubs. I can tell you what he looks like to this day. Everyone else in the room missed it. My mom was sitting right next to me. One of my best friends standing right here. No one saw it, but it happened. And my son took that big breath. From that point on, for me, there was always a sense of like there was a possibility that something could happen. And also the possibility that something greater could happen. And so I did spend, and I should say also that my sister was very ill at the time. So there was a lot of energy around health and wholeness and all of that going on in my life. And working with the joy and the beauty of motherhood and also the fear and the grief of these other pieces that came in was really a journey that I was on a lot in the first couple of years of motherhood. My sister passed within the first year and a half of my son's life. And I went into a very deep grieving process. And again, had to find my way into parenting, into mothering, into expressing love while experiencing grief. And so many of us have this opportunity. So many of us have beautiful, beautiful moments of loving in our lives that also contain within them history, vestiges, aromas, fragrances of grief from other parts of our lives. Even from this moment now, how can I hold you and love you and feel this grief at the same time? Many of us who've lost our mothers, many of us who've lost children, Many of us who have any kind of situation in our lives where something we love is in danger of moving away from us, feel the grief even before it goes. And yet, how do we love with that? I read you a poem that I found, The Spell. I loved that idea, the spell, to get present in the moment, from the internet. But also what was there this week was rejection of motherhood, rejection of nurturing, anger at Mother's Day, anger at the world, anger at the loss, anger at the grieving, railing against the stupid holidays that are made up by Hallmark, angry that this isn't a real holiday, that celebrating mothers isn't a real thing. It's something that's been put on us or forced on us, as if that's the truth. So again, listening to the words of joy and people starting to share and owning the whole weekend for Mother's Day, maybe Mother's Year next time, right? It's like there's so much possibility in here, and sometimes we'll just reject it just because something feels hard or sad. Something that's connected doesn't always feel exactly like the pure joy that we're demanding to have right now. Because if we're demanding pure joy right now, we might have to miss something. We might have to miss the depth and the beauty of love, no matter how it courses through our lives. Most recently, many of you know that my grandson was born, and he was challenged, and he still is, and he continues to be in the NICU. He's now in a bigger hospital, in a NICU where they're running 1 million tests, and there's still no answers. So I've thought about coming to Mother's Day with platitudes, with something else, so I didn't have to feel this. But the French have a great term that I love that plays with these energies that seem opposite, that come together and create beauty, that come together and create power and strength and lift us through our small imaginings of what love is into the grand field of what we as humans are actually capable of living with. The truth of the field of love that is so deep and grand and granular and chaotic, but not ultimately. Ultimately, what we are here for is the full experience of love. And if we are going to rip our hearts open for the full experience of love, we are going to feel grief. We are going to be incredibly sad. We are bonded because we love because we're bonded. And grief is a part of this journey. Let us not shy away from that just because it brings tears. Back to the French. The term is jolie laide, which means beautiful ugly. Beautiful ugly. Now, in French, they often use it towards people. And there'll be actresses. And actually in French, it's a great compliment because you're not just simply beautiful. You're simply beautiful and ugly all at the same time. Well, who here is not that? Totally beautiful and ugly all the time, right? Even if my look looks beautiful, I can be totally ugly sometimes, right? I know, and I suspect you know, that the depth and the beauty of life doesn't come from traveling across the surface where things are shiny and bright and clean. It comes from taking in the entire thing and feeling how much more love is this requiring of me? How much more depth and strength and courage is this requiring of me? I thought that moment with my son might be an isolated moment, and I was saved from it. I walked out in the hospital. I looked everywhere for this man. I asked at every desk, at every nurse's station. He does not exist. It did not happen. It did. There is no way that you don't feel the hand on your baby's body and see someone look at your eye in your eyes and tell you everything is going to be okay now. And think that was just not a thing. It happened, and no one can ever say it didn't. And yet, angelic experiences like this are hard to bring on unless we're all the way in the experience. All the way in means all the way open to love, to the universe, to every moment that has to twist and turn us into the pretzeling experience of being alive to deliver us, just the way it delivers infants in that very tight chamber that they have to find their way through, that each and every one of you, I might remind you, found your way through on your way to this life. That many millions, and maybe we wouldn't have a population problem if this wasn't true, but babies are finding their way here. And we're finding our way to accept that to love means to grieve passionately, and also to love deeper and to have a greater understanding of what it means to love. Love is not a field of only joy experiences. Love is you living with anything you've been asked to live with. Viktor Frankl found love in a concentration camp. Where do you find love where at first when you looked at it, you thought it might be impossible? And then you realized this vessel was so huge that you weren't yet ready. And so you had to stand in your power and get ready to open to more love, or shrivel into the tiniest part of yourself that is no longer fully alive. Mothering, nurturing, caring for fragile things. It's not women or men. It's the feminine principle. It's the creation. It is something that lives in you that you deeply, wholly commit and connect to. And you love no matter what it's doing. No matter what it's doing. Many people learn this from children because they learn it when their children don't do what they want them to do. They go in completely opposite directions, or they lie down, give up. It breaks us, but it doesn't break us open where the light shines in. It breaks us open. And without the joy of love, the grief of love would be too much. And so in our mothering, and I know every man in this world has the capacity to have this experience, whether or not yet. And probably most yet. To come into creation with something, to love it so much that you will not let it go, even when it fails you. And to come home inside yourself, let go of what? Let go. As your heart feels tight and small, we let go. The heart chakra is a lotus flower that is tight and small when we are unforgiving or lost. And as each petal releases that which it is holding, it opens to the grandeur of love. Feel the depth of your loving experience after you have lived through something with grief. Feel who you can be now. Feel the presence of the wholeness that you are, that you be when you can live with the grief of things that you don't want happening all around you. Look into the eyes of every being on this planet. Get bigger and see with grief and with love the beauty of that as the joy can cascade down through the universe into the wholeness that you are and just blast you suddenly. All of the sudden, something feels joy. Don't miss that moment. Don't miss the expansion of joy. Allow the feminine principle, the creator, the creation, the fullness of who you are to birth things of love on this planet, and then allow the letting go when that is required. Some people go through their whole lives with very, very little letting go. And some people let go and let go and let go and let go. And we bless both experiences, knowing that they are both powerful, strong, beautiful, and the way it is supposed to be. My meditation teachers, Lauren Roche and Camille Maureen, talk about this thing they call syzygy, which in my mind is very simply synergy without the N. And the syzygy of life, there are things that look opposite that actually create the power. In the moment where they come together, if you see an infinity sign of grief and joy, in the center of it is love. Jolie laide is your life. It is beautiful and it is ugly. It is everything. I invite you and me to grasp these moments as they continue, as they unfold, as they touch you fully in your heart. Let yourself love as deeply as you can, and let yourself let go of what you wanted it to be, what you thought it would be, and let yourself feel the full effect of that grief so that you don't get stuck and lost in anger and resentment and fake holiday ideas. Come home to love. Grow your capacity. Releasing is the spiritual joy of life. And so that we may be filled and filled and filled with that which we truly are. It is already there. It is a moment of choice. I feel all of it, and I live fully, and joy explodes through all of it. I bless you all in these moments of your life. I bless each of you in the mothering and the nurturing of your lives, of those in your lives, and especially of yourself. The grief you have of yourself, with yourself, places you choose not to love. Let it go. So you may feel the deeper experience of your full love of yourself and how that, from its overflow, gives we take this moment together to lift ourselves in this moment, to include everyone who occurred to us during the process of this conversation. to open, to allow just a little more space. And if not that, just even an idea, a consideration of maybe someday I'll be able to let this in. It's okay. We come here in full presence. We make these choices for ourselves as we can. We bless the dignity of each human being and their process and how they get where they're going. And we invite ourselves into the wholeness of love. For every person who is associated with this congregation, every being, every life, every love, knowing that way beyond that is a whole other world of people, of love, of joys and sorrows. The words of a song from Debbie Nagy Brown enter into this prayer. Oh, grief. Oh, joy. Found in the very rhythm of my beating heart. Oh, grief. Oh, joy. Please come together so I don't fall apart. Breathe in, breathe out. Breathe in, breathe out. Release all doubt. You are held. You are held. You are held. Grounded. In love. And so it is.